Despise not the day of small things. We heard that from Zechariah chapter 4, that who has despised the day of small things. This is, I think, was directed towards people who looked at the way that this reconstructed temple, the foundation of it, and they were a little disappointed because it wasn't going to be as grand as the thing that Solomon built. It was going to be a little bit downsized, so to speak. But uh, but we have a couple of things I think to look at, especially in the book of Proverbs. Excuse me. Uh, Going through these books of wisdom literature, when you talk about this centerpiece of the Old Testament, where you begin with Job and then you go to Psalms and Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. There are a set of books that are poetic in a way, and they are called, for lack of a better word, they're called wisdom literature. This is the way people learn to think, by reading these stories and singing these songs. Now, you start. Let's do a quick review. You have Job, and really, it's interesting that this begins this set of books, these set of 5 books. Job addresses the confrontations that we have in terms of pain and suffering. So you have Job is put into this contest, sort of a wager. The devil is telling God that if you take everything away from this man, he will curse you to his face, which is really, to me, the most important phrase in the book, because the devil is saying to God that Job can curse you to your face, which indicates there's some sort of relationship between the Lord and Job. A face relationship. God faces Job, Job can face God. And we read this in the Psalms too, about God looking, facing his anointed. So Job is a chosen man, and he has a relationship with God, and the devil knows it. So pain. And then we get into Psalms, where we see all manner of emotion covered: joy and sorrow, failure and victory, distress and delight. All of these things are sort of patterned out for us, and we're given songs to sing in those situations, prayers to pray. And then let's skip over Proverbs. I want to come back. That Ecclesiastes talks about having your doubts and expressing those doubts. And then Song of Solomon is really talking about the wildness and wonderfulness of love between a man and a woman. And you could, it's really is a basic set of love songs of a man out of his mind in love. Or maybe it's the woman. The woman does most of the talking. She's out of her mind in love with this man, and he's saying fewer words, but he's saying crazy things too about how much he loves her, and he's borrowing things from nature. Kind of interesting things too, like, your hair is like a flock of goats, your teeth are like tiny sheep. That's amazing. But it is like, that is the whole thing. So these books tell us that. So but when we look at Proverbs at the center of this is the book that informs our volition, our will. What could you do? What could you do? And in the midst of this, we get like these little instructions. They're fired at us. They're meant to be taken one at a time, and sometimes 3 or 4 at a time. It's a very interesting book that's telling us like what is, what we can do. Now, the thing that I want to caution you against is that not to read the Proverbs without the understanding of Job and Ecclesiastes. Because, we can look at Proverbs and say, wow, these are promises that if I just do this, they're like equations. If I do this, then this will happen. So it is true. If you fear the Lord and you are diligent in your ways, if you're honest, you keep your mouth shut for the most part. You don't You don't, what is it? You don't gossip. You're not a talebearer, those kind of things. There is a probability that you will have a life that makes a difference. But those are probabilities. You can't just rip something out of Proverbs and say, I'm going to apply this as like, and this is like the danger of like taking pieces of the Bible and just like slapping them on the wall and saying, that's going to happen for me. That's why I said, like, when you're reading Proverbs, don't forget to remember that bad things really did happen to Job, and he was a good guy who eschewed evil. And, Job never really got the whole behind the scenes story explained to him. He may have, but it's not written for us there. So we just take what's written. It's not written that God said, now let me tell you the story of what the devil did and why you had to go through all this. Now, when we get to Proverbs, I find Proverbs to be the ground level book. Like, this is the down to earth stuff. And this is expressed mostly, I think, in this proverb in chapter 6, verse 6. Go to the ant. Go to the ant. And then the word is, you sluggard. You are so lazy, you can't even take a lesson from the ant. Consider her ways and be wise. An ant, having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provides her meat in the summer. She gathers her food in the harvest. How long will you sleep, missing this example, old sluggard? And so this is like a direction to us. Go to the ant. Go to the ant. Look at this little creature and how it does how it lives by its convictions. I mean, we would say, well, it's gifted by God. God has put things in this creature. It has an outsized strength for its size, right? For its appearance, right? Ants lift. I don't know someone who knows about this, whatever that insect term is. Anyone who studies insects could tell you how much an ant can lift beyond its weight, but it's something. And you've probably seen, you've probably watched ants carry away a crumb. And that's, the ant, I think, and the woman in song, the woman at the end of Proverbs 31, they gather things from afar and they carry it back to their household. The ant carries that crumb that falls from someone's table, the potato chip piece, and takes it to the colony. And the household is cared for by this ant. Go to the ant. The ant is a small creature. It's down to earth. These are down to earth words. Look at the ant and apply yourself. Lazy people are always waiting for the big moment to do something. It's like, rather than looking at the ant, God is saying, look at the ant and, do your decisions. I am a person of a lot of routines, and I get up at a certain time in the morning. My body wakes me up, so I get up, and then I jog through the neighborhood a little bit, and then you can keep me, you pretty much from 5:45 to 8:15. I'm doing the same thing every day, pretty much during the week. I get up, I do that bodily function, then I go take a run, then I come back and put the coffee on while my shower is going. Then I come down and I open the Bible and I read like Psalm 119 and some passages from Psalms, and then I'll read a passage from Proverbs, of a chapter of Proverbs, and then I'll go through that. It's like a routine for me. And routines are the things, no building is built totally on finished carpentry. No building is going to survive. Just ask the king in is it 2 Kings, the king who fell through the lattice? No building can be built just with lattice. You need to have a foundation. Jesus said so. Right at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, doesn't he say, like, blessed is the person who hears my words and does them, and he shall have he's like one who builds his house on the rock, a foundation. And when the storms come, the house still stands. So, God is saying to us, look to the ant, watch the way it does things, and apply these things to your life. Do you treat the Word of God with respect and see it as something important to you, to add to your life, to know it, to, not necessarily memorize. I'm not really good at memorizing. I can tell you a lot of verses in the Bible, but you ask, where is that? And I could say, well, it's in Psalms, but I'm not exactly sure. I have a hard time with the numbers. Where are they? Some of them I've got down pretty good, but other ones I don't, but I can tell you if something's in the Bible or not. Pretty much if you said, is this in the Bible? Like, God helps those who helps himself. Where is that? That's in King Lear. That's a Shakespearean statement. It's not biblical. It's not. God does not help. God helps the helpless. He lifts the needy. He tells us that justice is best formed by caring for widows and the fatherless and the needy. That's the way we're supposed to execute justice. You can look it up. Every time God talks about justice, this is the way it's done. Go to the ant, go to the ground level, and see it, and it will help you. Later on, we get the 7 deadly ways. This is not to be confused with the 7 deadly sins, which were created by the institutional church at some point. This is the 7 things that God hates. And this is also in Proverbs 6. If I am aware of the ant, now an ant's also gifted, kind of interesting. It can crawl up a wall and it can crawl across your ceiling, right? God, that's amazing. I've seen an ant crawl across the ceiling with a crumb in one of its. How is it doing that? But God gifted it that way, outsized and overcompensating for the differences that it is, and it can do these things. Amazing. Look to the ant. Now, the 7 things that are an abomination to God, the first one is the important one. It says a proud look, or haughty eyes maybe is in your Bible. In other translations, the English Standard Version says haughty eyes, arrogant look. So a proud look, that's number 1. And I think that's number 1 for a reason. Pride, remember the monster sin. Remember Pastor gave that like rap session at a place. I think it was a businessman who's not with us anymore, not around, hanging around with us. He's here on the earth, but he's not in our church anymore. But they had like this big thing and this monster sin, the pride. So the proud look brings everything else out, the other 6 things. Like you're very easy to have a lying tongue if you're proud. It's very easy to shed innocent blood if you're proud. It's a proud thing that people, kill babies. That's a proud thing. It's like I'm proud about the way my life is going, and I don't want this interruption. So we're going to shed innocent blood. A proud thing. That starts with a proud look. Devising all manner of wicked imagination. That comes from a proud look. I'm going to create like stories that scare the life out of people. Those kind of things. What else? Feet that are swift to running to mischief. If you're proud, I'm going to go over and do that. What can it hurt? You run to mischief. It may be, but it starts with your pride. You think you can do this and get away with it. This is the whole thing about like drinking or gambling or even or any kind of sensual encounter, that kind of thing. If you're proud, you step into those kind of things without thinking about the consequences, and you think, I can handle it. I can handle it. What's one drink? You don't know. Some people have the idea that they can, I grew up in a Polish-Lithuanian family, and that side of the family, man, there were some wild wedding parties, let me tell you. And there was a lot of alcohol that went over and not so many people were knocked down, falling down, drunk. But there was like the one guy, there was the one like uncle that, after one drink, he was 3 sheets to the wind, whatever that means. He was just no more good. It's like, because you just don't know. But if you're proud, you run to the mischief. What could it hurt me? What little encounter outside of my marriage could hurt me? So you're quick to run to mischief with that. And the last one is you sow discord among the your brethren. Like that's introducing strife to the family. You just what harm could it do? Yeah, they need to get over it anyway. It's like dividing families. This is like all of this comes from number 1. It's like number 1, the proud look. I think God orders things in a certain way. The same thing with the 10 Commandments. Love God and everything else takes care of itself. Actually, Jesus reduced it to that. Love God, have him above all things, heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, and you will fulfill the whole law. Because if you love your neighbor, you probably won't kill him. That's, if you love your neighbor, you won't want his stuff. You won't covet his wife or anything that he has. And that's the last one, right? That's like the catch-all. Number 10 is the catch-all. And that's where Jesus like builds in the Sermon on the Mount, like the nature of sin from the coveting. Yeah. If you call someone a fool, that's a proud look, and it's an abomination, and it's a violation of having God in order in your life, and you loving God and then loving others. So if I'm looking to the ant and I'm understanding, the nature of something small like that and not despising that small thing and taking my lessons from that, not being lazy, not wanting like a massive kind of thing. Oh, I'll get, I'm just going to wait for like something bright, shiny. The Pharisees said, give us a sign. Give us a sign. Come on, Jesus, just give us a sign. I'll give you a sign. I'm going to go into the earth and I'm going to come out again. That's all you're getting. Just like Jonah went in the belly of the fish. I think like that makes sense. I just found like a new correlation there. An ant goes into the ground. Jesus goes into the ground and comes out. It's like amazing. So, you're not going to get a sign. It's like, you're not going to serve me based on all the things that I've told you. I've given you lots of signs. Remember the parted waters. And remember the water out of the rock. And remember the manna that fell from the sky every day that you could eat. And all that happened. Remember David killed Goliath with a pebble, perfectly placed between the eyes of a giant. All these things are big. There was a lot of signs there. People they're always looking. That's a lazy way to do it. And God is saying, go to the ant. And, like the woman who's the Syrophoenician woman that said, I need you to deliver my daughter. There's a demon that's plaguing her. And, Jesus, this is the famous exchange in the gospel. Jesus says, I can't take the bread that's meant for the chosen ones and give it to dogs, which was a name for like the Gentiles who weren't chosen, who weren't a part of this ethnic group of people known as Abraham's children. But she said, dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table, And, that's the thing. It's a small thing, like just to grab a crumb. It's like a couple weeks ago, it was amazing. And yesterday was her birthday. A couple weeks ago, just before Christmas, I did a funeral for a woman who was like, she prayed for me when I was a miserable jerk of a teenager. Let's just put it that way. She just prayed for me. And I can remember picking up her daughter for, church or a date. And she said, we're going to church tonight. Why don't you get saved? Get saved for me, Steve. Would you just get saved for me? And I really didn't recognize that. But this, when I recognized and understood that this woman went to a Pentecostal Bible college, she really wanted to go to China and be a missionary, and she never got there. She got married. She had a couple daughters. Her first husband got murdered under a bridge in Middle River. And but this woman just kept picking up crumbs and bringing them back to their daughter. And, she would poke me all the time. She would say, she would be poking me every time I showed up to her house. Hey, you need to walk with the Lord. You need to be a believer in Jesus, or, God is coming back. And I didn't get it, but it was a lot of she kept throwing these seeds at me. And, she kept gathering crumbs. She kept serving God as the best she could. And, and eventually it hit. I got lonely and depressed one summer, and I crawled back to that church and got saved there. And it's and that was this woman just kept picking up crumbs and bringing them back to her household. And this is it's so years later, I meet her, and then when she passed away in December, her daughters asked me to do the funeral. We don't have a brother, and you're like a testimony to what happened in her life, just the little crumbs that she kept bringing back to her house. And just get saved for me, would you, Steve? And then I realized, on about 4 or 5 days before she passed away, I got a message from Pastor Mike in Singapore, and said, would you mind waking up at 5 in the morning and doing a Bible a Bible college class for several groups of hidden people in that country that, is so large and so full of believers that they don't even know it. But here I'm doing a Zoom meeting for all these groups in China, you know. And I said that in the eulogy that I delivered at this. I said, she really had a heart for China. She really wanted to go to China. She never got there, circumstances. But, she kept telling me that I needed to get saved. And at one point, awkwardly, strangely, I fell into the faith. It was a thread of belief, but God did it. And just a couple days ago, I am teaching to groups of believers all over China via a Zoom call. So, the point that I made was like, this will speak to her reward of going to the ant. She was just a small believer, She wasn't a pastor's wife. She wasn't, she was a mother, a faithful church member, prayer warrior, prayed for me, and that happened. And, do not despise the day of small things. It's like all of us have stories like that, people. Like Pastor Love has the story of Pastor Cannon, just showing up, and, now every teenager that has been blessed by Pastor Love's life, every basketball player that's heard a devotional by Pastor Love's life has also been given something from Pastor Bill Cannon, because he's the one that told the story and told the truth. And he's getting glory. Maybe he's not getting it now. I don't know I read so many different things. It's going to happen here. It's going to happen someday we're all going to get that great and precious reward. And we're going to be surprised at the ant. Like, don't be lazy about it. Like, don't keep looking into the sky. Look at the ant. Abraham looked at the sky. That's that. But also look at the ram in the thicket, because that's speaking of the Lamb of God. Okay, yeah, look high. It's amazing, bright, shiny. As the stars in the sky are going to be your descendants. There's going to be believers who are friends of God just like you, because of the way that you're following me and you're hearing from me. But the amazing thing is that ram in the thicket, that's the key. The blood of the Lamb, that's the key. So you can go through Proverbs, and I think, like, when I look to the ant, then I can avoid being like a proud looker. And, we have to, we so easily do it. We so easily do it. We look at people and we just think, so glad, we're like the Pharisee and the publican. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not like that person. And God needs to put a finger on our mouth and say, you could be just go to the ant, because there's strength that I'm going to give you that's beyond appearances. There's a strength that I will give you. There's a strength that I will give you. And I will even put in you the very will to do of my good pleasure. You don't look like much, just like the widow who threw in 2 mites. She didn't look like much. She didn't have much, but her story, we've all read it. 2 dimes, just like 2 dimes found on the street in Dundalk, 2 dimes. This woman threw it in. And God said, she has given everything. And it's so, so don't despise small things. Go to the ant. Don't be lazy about it. And I think we'll see that we're not proud. We're not so proud. We are really just, we're not much. We don't look like much. We don't have much. But there is that psalm, I don't know where it is, where it says that you can't number the number of thoughts that he has towards you. It's towards the back end of Psalms. But it says that you can't number. Maybe it's Psalm 139. I don't know. Great are the number of thoughts that he has towards us. They cannot even be reckoned up. So, just like the lady with 2 mites, the ant, we just need to carry the crumbs and be believers in this way, and it'll be an awesome thing. All right. That's my message for today. Thank you for watching on the internet. Thank you for all these lovely people paying attention. God bless you. Have a great afternoon.